everyone, my name is Flavio Rubinstein. I'm a professor at FGV Direito SP. I'm here with Professor Giulio Allevato from IE Law School and Bocconi School of Management, who's here with us this week to teach a short-term course, Global Business Models and Tax Legal Issues, as part of the school's Global Law program. Giulio Allevato is a professor of international tax law with extensive academic and professional experience in the field. He earned his law degree and PhD in Milan, completed an international tax LLM at the University of Michigan Law School, and conducted postdoctoral research at the Institute for Austrian and International Tax Law at VU Vienna. His research focuses on international taxation, corporate taxation, taxation of the digital economy, tax policy as a regulatory tool, and tax risk management. Professor Allevato, very nice having you here. Welcome to FGV.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to be in touch with you and all your faculty members and students.
So how has been your week so far? You've been teaching the course, meeting the students, some of the faculty members.
So it's going great. I had the opportunity of meeting many students, especially those who are attending my course, and they all seem great, very interested, very committed, and interested in all the aspects of international tax law, international tax policy. And I also had the chance of meeting some faculty members of FGV, like you and some of your colleagues. And the impression is that you are outstanding and very committed and very focused on research and providing your students with the best possible teaching.
So you mentioned that your course here takes an approach of comparative tax policy. So you're sharing with our students your perspective and your experience, mostly with European law, but I'm sure you also have knowledge of other jurisdictions and practice. So could you tell us more about, even if the tax discussions are different in each jurisdiction, whether there is a common ground or some sort of convergence between the discussions?
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, this is a course, of course, on the main tax legal issue that concern global business models. So let's say the business models of multinational corporate groups which operate across many jurisdictions. And but even though, as you say, each country, each jurisdiction is different, has its own domestic rules and its own different interpretation, also the international tax legal framework and different approaches, we can see many similarities and many points in common, especially when we look at the challenges which are facing. We are all dealing with global issues and international issues which might and are affecting the taxing power, the effectiveness of the taxing power. So, in particular, we see that the corporate income tax has been under attack for the past decades, and this is a result of the combination of globalization and the technological advances that have occurred. So the international tax rules, as you know, were drafted back in the times when internet didn't even exist and where the new business models, which are not that new anymore, were not even there. So, and they result as outdated so far. So the idea is, that we should try to change, to amend the international tax legal framework. And in particular, I think that we should rediscover the certain functions of the taxing power and of the tax systems, which have been forgotten in the past. Taxation, as you know, and as I also
you mean
illustrated,
the non-fiscal policies?
Yeah.
Could you talk?
Yes.
Could you talk more about that?
Yeah. So, as I also wrote in my book, Non-Fiscal Policy and State Sovereignty, from the rise of nation states to globalization and corporate feudalism, this is the title of the book, the taxing power is not just to raise revenues, but it's also to achieve other goals, which are non-fiscal goals. So in particular, I'm referring to the redistributive goals, the use of taxation as a tool to redistribute income and wealth, and the regulatory goal, taxation as a tool to regulate behaviors, to, let's say, promote, implement, and achieve, let's say, social, economic, industrial, environmental goals, which are equally important as raising revenues. The corporate income tax plays not just a revenue-raising function, but plays an important regulatory function. It enables government to control, monitor, supervise the activities of corporations and to induce them to do certain things or not to do certain things which are considered detrimental by government. At the same time, income taxes are important for redistribution, and we see in many jurisdictions, in many regions, how the concentration of wealth in the hands of few individuals or in the hands of few corporate groups is a big problem nowadays. So taxation can play a role, and we should rediscover that and make it work also at the international level to make sure that indeed these goals are finally achieved.
So you authored a book on this exact topic. I'll mention the title and highly recommend everyone watching to read it. So it's Non-Fiscal Tax Policies and State Sovereignty, from the Rise of Modern Nation States to Globalization and Corporate Feudalism. Yeah. Could you talk more about the book? So what are the contents that you cover in the book and how relevant they are in the current tax debates?
Absolutely. The book is a mix of an historical analysis and an analysis of the tax policies, of certain tax policies which have been implemented by many national governments from the beginning of nation states, especially in Europe and in Northern America, to the current age of globalization. In my book, in this book, I illustrate how non-fiscal tax policy, so tax measures aimed at redistributing income and wealth, at achieving more social justice, and other tax policies also aimed mainly at regulating behaviors of individuals or corporate players, played decisive roles in the creation of nation state based on strong centralized governments and in their consolidations, and how they are still, they might still play a decisive role in preserving the power to govern, the state sovereignty, let's say, the power to and the ability to implement public policies in this age of globalization, when we think that the market is controlling everything, as should be left free to do everything. The idea is that a coordinated, let's say, exercise of taxing power, of a coordinated implementation of certain tax policy, which are not necessarily fiscal policy, but are also non-fiscal policies with the redistributive and the regulatory goal, might help government to re-establish their power to govern and their state sovereignty over certain actors which might be dangerous for democratic systems in particular, and which are very often not accountable because they are not subject to the traditional check and balance to which other actors instead are subject to.
You mentioned some global challenges which sound very familiar to the Brazilian discussions we've been having. So the climate crisis, growing inequality, disputes between countries for trade, regulation, expansion of business, all of the big tech debate as well. So going back to one of the other topics we briefly discussed about the common ground and the convergence of the tax debates, Do you think that the solutions that are being discussed in Europe, for instance, which you're more familiar with, could teach us lessons of what to do or perhaps what not to do?
I think every country, every jurisdiction can learn from others, especially when we talk about tax policy aimed at tackling, contrasting globalized issues such as environmental pollution or growing inequality, for example, which is something which is characterizing, which is affecting Europe as well as Latin America and Northern America at the same time. So we are dealing with the same problem, and taxation has proved being very often a tool more effective than traditional regulation, than traditional command and control regulation. I think that certain regulatory tax policies that we have implemented in Europe might be replicated in other jurisdictions, but at the same time, certain tax policies that have been implemented or are about to be implemented in other countries, such as Brazil. For example, I heard about some regulatory tax policies which are currently debated or are going to be currently implemented, might constitute a good example for our countries also. And so we are constantly learning from each other.
So, Professor Allevato, we've been discussing all of these global trends that affect tax. You mentioned tax policies which have non-fiscal goals as well, and all the convergence we're seeing between the different jurisdictions in terms of common challenges. Do you think the Global Law Program is a good platform for exchanging ideas and building on that?
Absolutely, yes, because, it's a program which is helping students and providing students with skills and sensitivity to be able to recognize, first of all, global issues, and to be able to analyze and at the same time contribute in the future to designing and implementing policies which should be adopted in coordination with other jurisdictions. So developing a sensitivity towards global issues, towards the global aspects of each law subject and legal subject is something which is extremely important for a world which is constantly and interconnected and globalized. Absolutely, yes, this is my answer. Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Hope we meet again soon. FGV will welcome you at any time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much. Thanks again for having me here and for the wonderful time I'm having. And hopefully we can continue to cooperate together